All right, let's get started. So, hello everyone. Welcome to the episode of Connecting with Simon Alexander Ong. This is episode number 51. And for those who haven't met me before, my name is Sam Lee, and I'm the founder of Connect with Confidence. And I'll be the interviewer interviewing Simon. So, Simon, how you been?
Sam, I'm doing amazing. Great start to the year so far, and really excited about the possibilities for 2023.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. Very well said. And I appreciate you joining in all the way from the UK. And I always wanted to do an interview with you because you're very high profile, and it's a privilege to have you on my my podcast. Simon. So tell me about So what did you do over the weekend?
So weekend now is spent with the family. So I became a parent for the first time in April 2020, Sam. And since then, my weekends are pretty much dominated by family time. So spending time with my wife and child, which for me is a beautiful way to spend the weekend. How about yourself?
Yeah, pretty well. Can't complain. Just working my business and chilling, playing some basketball, trying to get fit, and all this kind of stuff. So it was a good 20 new year for me as well, because getting more traction for my business, and like a lot of more clients and things like that. So which is good. So yeah,
amazing.
yeah. So Simon, tell me a bit about yourself. What do you like to do outside of work? What's your hobbies? What's your passions?
Yeah, so essentially because I have a lot of things I like to do outside of work, but as I have grown older, work has really become fun. It's been part of my lifestyle. Yeah. I remember when I was growing up in the southeast of England, and one of my favorite hobbies as a teenager was close-up magic. So I remember watching television, recording those magic shows and really trying to understand how they did magic tricks. And I would use that as a way to connect with other people, as an icebreaker, if you will, in social settings. And I still use that. I still use a little bit of magic when I run workshops for corporates and public audiences. So that's one of the hobbies I still keep up, not as much as I used to, but I still keep up to date a little bit. Outside of that, I also enjoy fitness. For me, fitness is part of my routine. It's a non-negotiable for me. So every day, if you don't find me answering emails or coaching or speaking, you will probably find me in the gym or out running somewhere. So I enjoy fitness. And then spending time with my family, either here in the UK or traveling abroad. So I'm very simple. I keep my hobbies lean, but at the same time, I'm always curious about things. So I'm sure that if we speak again in a couple of years, Sam, I will be exploring other new hobbies.
Sounds good. So how many days per week do you go to the gym?
So for me, I aim to be in the gym at least 5 out of every 7 days.
Wow.
Outside of that, I might go swimming. I might do something outdoors and local. I might just even go hiking with the family. So it's quite nice to expose my daughter to the benefits of moving our body. But for me, at least 5 out of every 7 days, I'm in the gym, either doing some cardio or lifting weights, just to keep myself not just in a good physical condition, but also manage my mindset.
Yep, sounds great. Very well said. Yeah. So, Simon, you're from Asian background. So, where were you born in?
So I was born here in the United Kingdom to Malaysian Chinese parents. My dad came from Cebu, which is on the Borneo Island. My mum came from Penang. In Malaysia, and they both met here in the UK university. So I was born here in a small town southeast of the country. And I remember when I was growing up at school, I was one of only a handful of Chinese students. And so it was an interesting upbringing, being one of only a handful of Chinese students. Today, there are a lot more diverse students, but at the time, I was very much a part of a minority.
Okay, cool. Sounds great. And tell me more about yourself. Like, is there something that the audience don't know about you?
Well, I guess in terms of myself, the journey in a nutshell, and a little bit maybe about some stuff that the audience may not know. So for those who don't know my work and what I do, I went to university after going through the education system here in the UK. I went to the London School of Economics, which is a very good university if you want to get into the world of finance. And I did what most students apply to the university to study, which was economics.
Yep.
And I finished there in 2007. I decided I wanted to pursue a career in banking, but unfortunately, it was the worst possible time to do so. You know, this was a year before the financial crisis, and the company I began with was Lehman Brothers, which collapsed 14 months after I joined. So not a very smooth start to my career.
Yep.
But at the same time, Sam, you know, it was one of the events that inspired me to explore the world of entrepreneurship. I said to myself, as long as I worked for someone, then, you know, my destiny would be outside of my hands, because there would always be someone else deciding, does Simon get the promotion? Does Simon get a pay rise? How much work do we give Simon? And I realized that until I began working for myself, a lot of that would be outside of my control. So that experience of going through the global financial crisis, it not only helped me build some resilience, but it also inspired me to explore my curiosities.
Yep.
And so I started to go seminars, I read more books, I dived into the world of personal development, and that really led me to what I get to do today, which is to coach some extraordinary clients. You know, I've had the privilege to have worked with Michelin star chefs, C-level executives, celebrities, creatives, entrepreneurs, and they in turn have inspired me to think different and to act bolder. I've also had the opportunity to speak at some incredible companies, the likes of Salesforce, Microsoft, Google, and so on, and travel around the world. You know, in the last 12 months, having traveled to the likes of Dubai, Malta, Barcelona, I'm going to the US in a couple of months. It's been such a blessing to be able to do what I get to do today. And of course, how we connected, you know, a couple of years ago, I got the opportunity to write a book with Penguin Random House, the largest publishing house in the world. And then to get that endorsed by the likes of Simon Sinek, Marie Forleo, Marshall Goldsmith, New York Times bestselling authors, was an absolute dream come true. So that's a little bit about my journey. In terms of maybe things that people don't know, I mentioned one already, which is I enjoy close-up magic. I think something else is that I'm a big film buff. You know, I love world cinema. So I love exploring cinema, not just from what is produced in Hollywood, but Korean films, European films, you know, the more sort of niche films, where you can actually find some great gems of cinematography. And some of my favorite films are the more independent ones rather than the big budget Hollywood films.
Wow, very well said. It's a good resume that you have. I actually like your accent. Your English accent is very good. I always think like English accent is like music to my ears, and like from my Australian, like growing up in Australia, I have an Australian accent, and every time I hear it's like English, but English accent is very different. Anyway, it's very.
Well, I'll tell you something funny, Sam. I get a lot of people who may not have heard me speak, so we might meet for the first time here in the UK or when I speak abroad. And they sometimes say to me, Simon, are you from Australia? and I say, what makes you think that? And they say, well, you come across as if you have an Australian accent. And I think the reason is, even though I have a British accent, some of it has been lost by the fact that my wife is American. So over the years, it's changed my accent a little.
That's very cool. Yeah, it's very good. Like it's just very amusing how everyone's got like different. When I speak English, it's all different accents, so which is very cool. So you got Australian accent, you got British accent, you got American accent, which is very good.
It's all mixed in there somehow.
Yeah. So Simon, tell me about your career. So you told me a little bit about your career. Tell me more about your book, the book on Energize. So you're a best-selling author, and tell me what made you write the book Energize.
Sure. So I remember in the middle of 2019, Sam, what I do in the middle of every year is I sit down, I reflect on the first half of the year, what has gone well, what have been the lessons, what I can be proud of, and what I'm going to take forward in terms of things that I want to be better at. And I would put down also the priorities for the second half of the year. Now, in that list, I did not have write a book. So it was one of the things I was thinking about, but it wasn't on the top 3 of my priorities. And then I remember a couple of months later, towards the end of 2019, I got approached by a boutique publisher. And they offered me a deal, but at the time I didn't think it was the right one for me.
Yeah.
And that inspired me to look into writing a book. I mean, up until that point, I didn't think about writing a book, but that experience inspired me to explore that opportunity.
Yeah.
And I often say that the universe works in mysterious ways. You know, sometimes it blesses you with an insight, an idea, or a bit of inspiration, and then it is up to us to take action on it. And I started to listen to that intuition after I got this offer, which I was not expecting. And that inspired me to reach out to other publishers, to connect with them, and to start sharing the ideas I had if I were to write a book. And I didn't expect many to reply, if at all. And then Penguin was one of those that replied.
Oh, wow.
And they invited me to have a conversation. And I think things started to click from there. You know, they liked my energy, they liked what I was about, what I was doing, and how I was building my community and brand. And I said, here are a few ideas that I could write about. And number one on that list was the working title, Energy is Everything. Now, of course, that title was edited down to Energize, which we know in the final book. But the reason I put forward the idea, Energy is Everything, is because, number one, I went through a period of my life where I had no energy. Now, when I say no energy, I mean no energy from a physical, a mental, an emotional, and a spiritual perspective. And second, when I came down from the stages that I spoke at, I would often get people come up to me and say, Simon, I loved your energy on stage. And you know what? If I could have just a small percentage of the energy that you have, I could go on and accomplish so much more. It made me think, what was it that gave me the energy to show up in the way that I show up? And so I really wanted to write a book about my journey and how I went from feeling exhausted to feeling energized.
Wow, that's a very powerful story. Yeah, I guess like I had a look at your book as well, so which is very good. And yeah, it's all like energy is everything. Like you really need it in all walks of life. So you project your energy to other people, then yeah, they'll probably get convinced, they have more confidence, that kind of stuff. So which is good. So, and yeah, Simon, tell me about how did you get Simon Sinek to endorse your book? I'm very curious about that. And like Simon's all the way from America, and you're in English in UK. So how did he get you? I'm very curious. And yeah, like I said, I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek as well. You as well. But yeah, how did you get that? Yeah, how did you?
So I would say it was a combination of acting a little bold and a combination of luck. I'm not going to lie, there's also some luck involved. So if I give you the backstory, so in 2014, I think it's 2013 or 2014, Simon was in the UK promoting his second book.
Oh, wow.
And his second book was Leaders Eat Last. That was his second book. The first book, of course, was Start With Why. And he was speaking at an event that one of my friends was putting together. And it was an exclusive event at a members club. It was around 60 or so people, so very intimate dinner. And she said to me, Simon Sinek is going to be here doing an after dinner talk. Do you want to come? Now, of course, the answer was yes. I didn't have to think about it. It was yes, I'll be there. And I remember going to this event, Sam, and I asked a woman at the front who had the list of all the attendees. And I said to her, can I just have a look at that list to see if I have any of my friends also coming? And when I looked through that list, I saw that there were only two Simons on that list. Simon Sinek, and of course me, Simon Alexander Ong. And I said to myself, that is going to be my icebreaker. That is how I'm going to connect with Simon Sinek. So before the dinner, people are getting their drinks in the cocktail bar. And so I go to the cocktail bar, I spot Simon in the corner, and I walk up to him and I say, hi, Simon, good to meet the only other Simon at this event tonight. And we just get talking. We only speak for around 20 minutes, and then everybody gets called to the dinner room. Now we have dinner, Simon does his speech, and at the end, he's signing copies of the new book, Leaders Eat Last. So after I get my copy signed, then I take a photo with Simon. I say to him, Simon, one day I will be sharing a stage with you on speaking about the work I do. And he simply said to me, I look forward to it. Now, fast forward to 2018, 2019, I am invited to speak at the WBEX conference, which is the World Business and Executive Coach Summit.
Yeah.
Alongside the likes of Rich Litvin, Michael Neal, Daniel Goleman, Marshall Goldsmith, and who else is on the agenda? Simon Sinek. And so our paths cross again, speaking at this event. And I was like, wow, maybe this was meant to be. I remember saying to him a few years ago that one day, Simon, I'll be speaking on a stage with you. And that was it. And so we connect again. And then a couple of years later, when COVID struck, so when COVID struck in 2020, he had to pivot his business. So Simon had to pivot his business to be more online. Yeah. And so he needed to collaborate with other teachers and educators. And so his head of learning reaches out to me and says, Simon, would you be interested in collaborating with Simon Sinek? Wow. And now, of course, I'm going to say yes. And again, we want to explore what we can do together. And so I used the opportunity to get to know Simon's team. But towards the end of 2021, I send them an email once I have the advanced copy of my book ready. And I say to the contact, when are you next meeting Simon or having your team meeting? And he tells me the date. And I said, would it be possible if you could share this digital copy of my book with Simon to see what he thinks and if he is open to writing a blurb, an endorsement for the book? And he says to me, just to manage my expectations, he says to me, Simon, I can, but please understand that Simon rarely writes endorsements for any book.
Yeah.
And I said, totally understand. And if he doesn't, I'm completely happy still. But hey, you never know if you never ask.
Yeah.
And so he goes away. I give it a few days. And then by the end of that same week, I get an email back. Initially, I thought it was bad news because it said, we need a few more items before we can proceed on the collaboration. And then I read further down the email and it says, however, I have some good news for you.
Yep.
Simon got back with the following words, which you can use as an endorsement for your book. And my mouth just dropped on the floor. I was like, that's my Christmas present right there. A written endorsement for my book that I can use on the front cover.
Mm. Wow, that's a dream come true, right? Like
I'll tell you what, Sam, I don't know what made him decide to give an endorsement.
Yeah.
But the story I like to tell myself is that perhaps he has a soft spot for the fact that I'm also called Simon.
Maybe he did a very good icebreaker. That's why he's
yeah. Maybe it was a memorable icebreaker.
Yeah. Wow. That's a dream come true. I wish I had the same opportunity. So it's really cool. Yeah. So yeah, Simon. So how long did it take for you to write your book? Like I read 2 books. My first book took. I was thinking I was gonna write it for 1 year. Like 1 year is fine, but it took 2.5 years for me to write. Longer than expected.
Yeah. Very, very similar to you, Sam. So I got the contract with Penguin sorted just after April 2020.
Yeah.
And of course, it was a very difficult time to start writing straight away because we had lockdown in the UK.
Yeah.
I became a father for the first time. I had to adapt my business because a lot of my work is speaking in person. And of course, overnight, you could not host any in-person events.
Yeah.
And so I had to adapt my business.
Yeah.
But once I started writing, which was around August 2020, from August 2020, it would take until December 21, so about 1.5 years, until I had the finished copy of the book ready to go to print. So about 1.5 years until it was ready to go to print. And then it was another 3 to 4 months for sending it to the printers, getting the copies produced. And then April 22 last year, it was published.
Yep.
And so April 22 for me was a busy but exciting month to get my first book out into the world.
Yep.
And I was doubly excited because I was also able to host a in-person launch. Because I wasn't sure a few months before if I could, given that there were still lockdown restrictions in place. But I was happy that a couple of months before the government lifted restrictions, and I was able to host an in-person launch.
Interesting. So would you say how long was the duration of the total duration for you to get the book in your hand?
So total from the moment of signing the contract to getting the book into people's hands, I would say, so 2020, 2 years.
2 years. Okay. Wow. That's really
over 2 years. Yeah.
Were you excited when you got your first book like in your hands?
Yeah, it was exciting because I saw the book being printed, so I was able to go to the printing factory,
Yeah.
where they were printing copies of the book, and to pick up one of the first copies and smell that paper. What was such a wonderful experience. You know, I took my videographer along just to capture the experience, and we shared it on social media. And it's so cool to give people an insight into what it's like to be at a printing factory and to see a book go from just sheets of paper to being compiled together into a physical product.
Wow, very good, very interesting, your story. So yeah, it's very good. Like how like I guess sometimes it's luck, sometimes you have the skill. Like Penguin is not easy to get into, and you getting like endorsement from Simon Sinek is just
Totally. I mean, I think if there's anything I've learned from the process, Sam, is first of all, we've got to constantly be planting seeds every single day. Now, what I mean by this is, how are you showing up? How are you serving other people? How are you giving value to others? Because what happens is the more value you give, the more you show up, the more you plant seeds, whether it's build a new relationship, connect with a new community, build your network, whatever that is, give people experience of what you do, then you start to build your brand and your awareness. And that leads into the second thing. You know, when people come across your work on social media or on Google, what shows up? You know, what sort of content do you have? Is it sort of the content that people want to be associated with? Do people see that you've got great value? Do they want to be aligned with your work? And so when you start building those foundations, what happens is you begin to unleash the gateway to opportunities.
Wow, that's very inspiring. Lucky I got this recorded, because it's I can always listen back to it and for some motivation. So that's really good. So yeah, that's something that I really want to do as well. So I guess just all persistence, getting yourself out there, and I guess it can be someone like you. So which is really cool. Yeah. So Simon, thanks for sharing your career and your so the third question is, what's the secret behind building rapport with people? How do you build trust build your network? How do you build trust? What's the secret behind that?
Well, the secret to building trust is to give people a gift that few will experience. And that gift is to give people the space where they feel listened, supported, and appreciated. Now, the reason why it's hard for a lot of us to build rapport is because often we're more interested in telling people about us than we are in listening about them. And so once we change that dynamic, it becomes a lot easier to create rapport with other people. So what you want to be doing is to be thinking about what is interesting to them. How can I get to know them rather than just tell people about you? You know, there's a great story I share in my book where there were two candidates that were fighting to be the next prime minister of the UK. And they met the same woman over a dinner event. And the woman was asked about her experience of meeting these two men. And she said, one of the men she met, she felt like he was the most important and interesting person in the world. The other man that she said, he made me feel like I was the most interesting and important woman in the world. Now, guess who won the election? It was the second man, because he had the ability to make people that he spoke to, he made them feel important. And so I think for us to build rapport with other people, we have to show that we're interested in them, but show how we can be helpful and the value. And the thing is, once you begin to hear about other people's challenges, their story, their goals, what they're working towards, you can then see how you can be of service to them. And I think that's how we connect with people. We use what people share with us to find something that we have in common.
Wow. That's very powerful. Yeah. Like what you said is very true. If you're interested in other people other than you're interested in yourself, it goes a mile away. Like it's very cool what you said. So it's a very good lifelong lesson. So Simon. So thanks for sharing the hints and tips from your end. And the last question is, how do the viewers connect with you? Are you on what social media platforms are you on? What's the website so the viewers can connect with you further?
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share, Sam. So my website is simonalexanderong.com. So you can go there to learn a little more about me, have a look at my book, have a look at my audio course. I'm also on all major social media platforms. So I use LinkedIn, I use Facebook, I use Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. But the two I use most are LinkedIn. So feel free to reach out to me there. And Instagram, my handle is at Simon Alexander O.
Very good. Later on, I'll be joining all your social handles and sharing this interview everywhere. So which is cool. So yeah, Alex, Simon, thanks for your time. I appreciate your time spent with me, and it was a privilege to speak to you all the way from UK. And yeah, all your profile, your background is very inspiring. So yeah, viewers, you know how to connect with Simon Ong. He's a great guy. He's very humble and very high profile. So if you want to connect with him, yeah, do so on his social media accounts. And yeah, Simon, thanks for your time, and that's draws to a close for today's interview. And yeah, I hope you have fun. And yeah, thanks for joining. Thanks a lot, Simon. I'll speak to you soon.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sam. And I'll speak to you soon as well.
Yep. Thank you. Bye. Bye.